third stop on the BMW IBSF Bobsleigh and Skeleton World Cup Tour, and we're in the Austrian Tyrol, above the double Olympic city of Innsbruck, outside the town of Eagles. First track action after a snowy start to the week and very little training is Skeleton, the men first up. Into the second and deciding heat, bronze medalist from the World Championships Alexander Gassner in sixth position, 22 hundredths away from the leader. But a great, strong second run would put him ahead of the world champion, his teammate Christopher Groothair, with 5 to go. It's 13 years since Russia's Alexander Chechikov last won a race in Innsbruck, but he's been on the podium 10 times in the intervening years. And this was a top draw run. Only 1 day of training, 2 training runs for the athletes, and the experience of Chechikov on this track really showed. Comfortably the fastest run of the competition. 700ths quicker than his teammate. Tied for third place was Nikita Tregibov after the first heat. Daniel Romanov had already dropped behind Chechikov, and Tregibov did exactly the same. Couldn't find the second run pace he needed by a slender 200ths. Chechikov was in the leader's box with 2 to go, and the top 2 were tied to the 100th of a second after the first heat. In only his 4th World Cup, incredibly Great Britain's Matt Weston, just 23 years old, had tied the leader, but he too dropped behind in the second part of the run, couldn't rein in the flying Alexander Chechikov, and he would finish just out of the medals. Which left one man. 11 straight wins in World Cup and World Championship races on this track. Martin Stucors was determined not to lose out again. He won the season opening weekends in Sigulda and is now 3 for 3. A tie, a dead heat, gives him his 12th straight victory here and a first tie with Alexander Chechikov. Nikita Tregibov took the bronze ahead of Weston, Gassner and Groothair. With a perfect winning season so far, Martin Stucors continues to lead the World Championship standings. They remain in Eagles for next week's races. Race 3 of the BMW IBSF Women's Skeleton World Cup at the scenic track at Innsbruck in Austria. And after the first heat was hit by snow, despite running all 20 athletes down the track, the jury decided to cancel the result and count just the second heat, which left us with an odd situation. 4th off the start line, Italy's Valentina Margaglio. She had finished in 9th place in January's race here, her best ever World Cup result. And after a good first run, she improved hugely in the second to put in a real burner. The 27-year-old was still the race leader when Tina Hermann came up next. The German, 3 times a winner on this track, including the World Championships in 2016. She's been off the podium for the last couple of seasons. That was likely to change as she took a slender lead. Elena Nikitina of Russia was next up, twice a winner on this track as well, including her first ever World Cup win. Nikitina was in a class of her own on the second heat. She corrected the errors that she'd made in the abandoned first run to spear ahead. Janine Flock had started the season with 2 wins in Sigulda. She was also the fastest sled in Heat 1, but Heat 2 didn't quite follow the same plan. The Austrian had good speed, but not great at the Kreisel, and it didn't help her down the run. She came across the line nearly half a second back in silver, tied with Tina Hermann. Kimberly Bos of the Netherlands, second in the World Cup rankings after 2 medals in Sigulda, put another storming run together, driving herself into a firm second position at the bottom of the track. With Nikitina staying in the leader's box, Kimberly Bos continued her magical start to the season with a silver medal. Janine Flock and Tina Hermann tied for the bronze, but it was a win for Elena Nikitina of Russia, who now jumps to 3rd in the World Cup rankings. And they'll race one more time in Innsbruck next week. Saturday morning and a debut. For the first time in 20 years, a brand new Winter Olympic sliding discipline will be introduced in Beijing, women's monobob, and the first televised race from the Monobob World Series held in Innsbruck. After the first of the two heats, Great Britain's Misha McNeil, who's got limited monobob experience, was lying in the top 5. A good start from the Geordie and a good drive down the track despite a couple of little errors in the new generation of monobob sleds, left her with the lead over Romania's Andrea Grecu. In 4th place after the first heat, Melanie Hassler of Switzerland. That's where she'd finished the first race of the World Series a week earlier in Winterberg in Germany. She had a 24 hundredths of a second advantage partway down the course and didn't give it away to close in on the medals. But the top 3 featured local heroine Catty Bile. Catty finished in the bronze medal position a week earlier in Winterberg, behind the silver medalist Martina Fontenev of Switzerland and the gold medalist Nadezhda Sergeva of Russia, neither of whom were present in Innsbruck. So she had a great shot at the medals, and as she put Melanie Hassler out of the leader's box, she guaranteed herself another monobob medal. 2016 Youth Olympic gold medalist Lara Nolte was Germany's representative in the medal hunt, but she hasn't driven a single-seat sled since those youth games and only tested the sled like her teammates this week in Eagles. But you wouldn't have guessed it from looking at her smooth, polished drive down the track. Having the best speed and holding a lead over Catty Bile, it evaporated towards the end, but she still had a 12 hundredths of a second advantage, was guaranteed at least a silver medal. The leader after the first heat, though, was Australia's Brianna Walker. In her previous 7 monobob races, she'd had 5 golds, a silver and a 4th position. She was our hot favourite, despite converting from the old plank sled to the new generation articulated sled. For her, it drove better, and a start record and 2 track records on her way to gold all helped to confirm Brianna Walker as one of the leading lights of the Monobob World Series. Saturday afternoon and more familiar territory. Certainly this year, it's the 5th race of the 2-man Bobsleigh World Cup on a track that always produces close finishes. Into the second heat, top 5 spot for Dominik Dvorak, his best performance so far. 9th place in January's race in Innsbruck, and a good second heat would leave him ahead of Germany's Christoph Hafer, his career best in Innsbruck. Next up, Michael Vogt of Switzerland. He had 3 medals under his belt from Sigulda, 3rd in the World Cup standings. And on this short 1200-metre track, the gaps are always tiny between Vogt of Switzerland and Dvorak of the Czech Republic at the finish line. No gap at all. They were tied for the lead with 3 to go. A personal best at Innsbruck for both men. Francesco Friedrich has been headed this year in a 2-man race. That was in Sigulda race 1, but he came back to win it. 17 hundredths off gold from the first heat. He wasn't second, he was 3rd, but a phenomenal run left him way ahead of Dvorak and really threw down the gauntlet to his pursuers. First of whom, Latvia's Oskars Kībermanis. Disappointing race weekends in Sigulda, just 1 medal for him in the 2-man competition, but he dropped behind early on and could not find the pace down the track that Friedrich had unlocked. He would slip into 2nd place. Friedrich had 1 more sled to go between him and victory. That one sled, the man who led him in Heat 1 in Sigulda, Johannes Lochner, but Lochner did not back down this time. An astonishing turn of pace saw him not just hold, but nearly double his 17 hundredths of a second advantage, racing away to a 3/10 margin of victory, almost unheard of at such a tight track as Innsbruck. First gold medal of the season for Hansi Lochner ahead of Francesco Friedrich and Oskars Kībermanis, but it is Friedrich who still leads the World Cup standings. And they get to do it all again on Sunday. Sunday morning and the women back in action, this time in the 2-seater sleds with the full World Cup field. Brianna Walker of Australia, the previous day's winner in the monobob competition, crashing dramatically in corner 12, but still recording her career best result in Innsbruck. Tied for fourth place after the first heat, Great Britain's Misha McNeil and Austria's Katie Beil. McNeil went first with brakewoman Montel Douglas. A good strong start and good lines down the track from the smooth hands of Misha McNeil puts her ahead of Margot Bosch of France. But would it be enough to take the advantage away from the hometown queen? Beil with Jennifer Onyesanya as ever behind her, starting strongly, but it wasn't a good day for the Austrian. Mistakes in the second heat dropped her behind her British rival. She would end up in fifth position after taking bronze in the monobob race the day before. Misha McNeil, the leader, guaranteed at least a career equalling fourth. A German podium looked a very likely prospect. Mariama Yamanka, the previous year's race winner, was in third position, 25 hundredths behind the first heat leader. Could she overhaul them? Well, a great second drive gave her a real opportunity and guaranteed her a medal here in Innsbruck for the fourth year in a row. In second place, Kim Kilicki, the World Championship silver medalist. She was a few hundredths ahead after the first heat. Opened up her advantage over Yamanka with a great second drive as well. Now she was potentially the front runner for the gold. Last to go, 22-year-old Lara Nolte with Debbie Levy behind her. They'd had the fastest start and were 1800s up over Kim Kilicki from the first heat. After silver medal in the monobob race the previous day, Lara Nolte, in only her 8th World Cup, claimed her 3rd World Cup victory, beating her teammates by 0.3 of a second. A dominant German performance sweeping the podium. Deborah Levy adding to that with her second career win and fastest push starts. Mariama Yamanka is the World Cup points leader. They remain here in Innsbruck for one more week. Sunday afternoon and the second two-man race of the weekend here in Innsbruck. It's round 6 of the two-man World Cup. Fourth equal place in Saturday's race. Dominik Dvorak of the Czech Republic was in 5th position after the first heat on Sunday. First job was to overhaul Brad Hall of Great Britain, which he managed, but he was in a tight battle for 4th, 100th ahead of the British sled. Would it be enough to take another 4th place? The man that stood between him and 4th was young Russian Rostislav Gajchukovic. Eagles' first stop on the World Cup tour. This is only his 4th World Cup race. The 26-year-old, who's the silver medalist in the Junior Worlds in two-man in 2020, just had enough in hand to beat the Czech driver and guarantee himself a career best top 4 finish. But the podium looked to be out of reach. Nearly 3/10 clear in 3rd place after the first heat was the previous day's bronze medalist Oskars Kibermanis. He was a little out of sorts on his home track in Sigulda, better here in Eagles, but it still looked as though he was going to have to find something special to challenge the leaders. He guaranteed himself a second bronze medal, but the battle for gold, as the previous day, was between two German drivers. On Saturday, it had been Johannes Lochner who'd won the race by 0.3 of a second. He was only 500ths off the leader after the first heat, and a good-looking second run laid down the gauntlet. But it's not often that Francesco Friedrich gives races away. Until Saturday, he had had 6 years unbeaten on this track, with Torsten Margis pushing him to every gold medal. Saturday was the glitch. Sunday, normal service was resumed. He claimed gold by 1600ths. They stay in Innsbruck to fine up their Eagles driving techniques next weekend with 2 more races before Christmas. Friedrich is still our World Cup points leader.